Saydnaya prison, a facility located near Damascus, has earned a reputation as one of the most horrifying detention centers in modern history. Known as the human slaughterhouse, it symbolized the brutality of Bashar al-Assad's regime during Syria's prolonged civil war. For years, it was a site of unimaginable suffering, where detainees faced systemic torture, starvation, and mass executions. While recent political shifts have brought significant changes, the scars of Saydnaya's atrocities remain deeply etched in Syria's collective memory. A history of horror. Under Assad's rule, Saydnaya was transformed from a military prison into a tool of repression, aimed at silencing dissent and instilling fear. Reports from survivors and human rights organizations paint a grim picture of life inside the prison. Overcrowded cells, starvation-level diets, and brutal physical abuse were the norm. Torture techniques included electric shocks, hanging detainees from ceilings, mock executions, and psychological torment. One survivor recalled the relentless violence. "They would beat us with cables, metal rods, anything they could find. We were hung from the ceiling for hours, listening to the screams of others. The sounds were unbearable, and the smell of death never left the air." The prison became infamous for its systematic killings. Detainees were often executed en masse, their bodies dumped into mass graves. Amnesty International's 2017 report described Saydnaya as a place of industrial-scale killing, with thousands of executions carried out in secret. Recent developments. A shift in power. The landscape shifted dramatically in December 2024 when rebel forces overthrew Assad's government, marking an end to his 14-year reign of terror. As the regime collapsed, rebel forces stormed Saydnaya prison, freeing hundreds of detainees from the facility's overground cells. Videos from the scene captured jubilant crowds and emotional reunions. Women and children, some imprisoned for years, walked out into the light, stunned and disoriented. Despite this progress, the prison's underground cells, referred to as the Red Prison, remain inaccessible. These subterranean chambers are believed to house many more detainees, some potentially still alive. The complexity of the prison's design and fears of booby traps have slowed efforts to unlock these areas. Activists and rescue teams are now calling for specialized assistance to safely liberate the remaining prisoners. The aftermath of liberation. For the newly freed, the road to recovery is fraught with challenges. Survivors often emerge in a state of physical and mental collapse, their identities shattered by years of abuse. Some cannot remember their own names or recognize their families. Reintegrating into society after such prolonged dehumanization is an uphill battle. Additionally, the release of these prisoners has reopened old wounds for countless families still searching for missing loved ones. Many cling to the hope that their relatives might be found alive in Saydnaya or other detention centers across Syria. One freed prisoner, who had been awaiting execution on the day of the rebel takeover, expressed disbelief. "We thought this was our last day. Hearing the doors break open and realizing we were free felt like waking up from a nightmare." The legacy of Saydnaya. Saydnaya's horrors reflect the broader human cost of Syria's civil war, a conflict that has displaced millions and left the country in ruins. While the liberation of Saydnaya marks a significant turning point, it also underscores the immense challenges ahead. Rebuilding Syria will require addressing the deep wounds left by decades of violence, holding perpetrators accountable, and creating a system of justice that can ensure such atrocities are never repeated. The path to accountability. The international community has long condemned the Assad regime for its human rights violations, but achieving justice remains elusive. Saydnaya's liberation reignites calls for accountability. Advocacy groups are urging for war crimes tribunals and greater international intervention to address the regime's abuses. However, political complexities and competing interests among global powers have often stalled meaningful action. Human rights organizations emphasize the importance of documenting evidence from Saydnaya, as the testimonies of survivors and physical evidence within the prison could play a crucial role in future prosecutions. Yet, there is also concern that the sheer scale of atrocities might overwhelm Syria's fragile legal system, necessitating international assistance. Rebuilding lives and society. For Syrians, the fall of Saydnaya is both a symbol of hope and a reminder of the trauma they have endured. The nation faces a monumental task in rebuilding not just infrastructure but also trust and social cohesion. Survivors of Saydnaya and other detention centers will need extensive support, including medical care, psychological counseling, and economic assistance. Additionally, families of the disappeared are demanding truth and transparency. Many want access to prison records to determine the fates of their loved ones. Advocacy groups are pushing for a national reconciliation process, similar to those implemented in post-conflict nations like South Africa, to address grievances and foster healing. The challenges ahead. While the fall of Assad's regime offers a chance for change, Syria's future remains uncertain. The power vacuum left behind has raised concerns about potential infighting among rebel factions and the risk of new authoritarian leadership. Furthermore, the humanitarian crisis persists, with millions still displaced and dependent on international aid. The liberation of Saydnaya, while a victory, also highlights the immense work required to dismantle the structures of oppression that defined Assad's rule.